Okay, today we're going to start 5.4 and I've given you a link to print out two graphs we're going to use today. And you want this graph twice. We're going to use the same one twice today. So let's get started. All right, 5.4 Pampering and Feeding Time. And this is a practice understanding task, a great little activity. So Carlos and Clarita have been worried about space and startup costs for their pet sitters business, but they realize they also have a limit on the amount of time they have for taking care of the animals they board. To keep things fair, they have agreed on the following time constraints. So here we go. Another constraint called feeding time. Carlos and Clarita estimate that cats will require 6 minutes twice a day, morning and evening, to feed and clean their litter boxes for a total of 12 minutes per day for each cat. And if we're using Y for the number of cats again, that would give us a 12Y. 12 minutes per cat. All right. Dogs will require 10 minutes twice a day to feed and walk for a total of 20 minutes per day for each dog. And if we're using X for the number of dogs, that would be plus, and what was that? Total of 20 minutes per day per dog. All right, so that's plus 20X. There you go. Now, Carlos can spend up to 8 hours each day for the morning and evening feeds, but needs the middle of the day off for baseball practice and games. All right, so this is key right here. Up to means less than or equal to, but now this is 8 hours and everything else is in minutes. So we're going to need to convert our 8 hours to how many minutes? How many minutes are there in 8 hours? Well, there's 60 minutes in an hour, so 60 times 8 would be 480 minutes. You need to have everything in the same unit of time here. So we get 20x plus 12y is less than or equal to 480 minutes. Write inequalities for each of these additional time constraints. Shade the solution set for each constraint on separate coordinate grids. All right, so let's make it happen. So here's your first piece of graph paper that I gave you a link to, and we're going to put the inequality 20x plus 12y less than or equal to 480 on this graph right here. So our first objective would be to get our boundary line. Let's graph the boundary line. And when we are in standard form, the easiest way to graph a boundary line would be to use intercepts. And the easiest way to find our two intercepts would be to do a simple table. And for the y-intercept, x is 0. And for the x-intercept, y is 0. So now it's just a little simple arithmetic. If x equals 0, 20 times 0 is gone, and I'm left with 12y is 480. So let's find our y-intercept by taking the 480 and dividing by 12. 480 divided by 12, and I'm getting 40. So the y-intercept is 40. Where's my arrow go? There it is, 40. Now, if y equals 0, then the 12 times 0 is gone, leaving 20 times what number is 480. And to find that, let's just take our 480 and divide by 20. So 480 divided by 20, and I'm getting 24 for an x-intercept. So let's plot those two intercepts on our coordinate plane. When x equals 0, y equals 40. That's my y-intercept of 40. Oh, and look, I don't see 40 labels, so we have to figure out our hash marks look like 3s. So this would be 30, 33, 36, 39. So 40 would be about right there. And you just have to approximate that. Do your very best. All right. And then the x-intercept is the ordered pair 24, 0. And that 24 is labeled, so that's going to go right there. And then you get your ruler out, and you set up the ruler between those 2 points and draw a perfectly straight boundary line. And because there's an equals here, the boundary line needs to be solid. There you go. Now, we're ready to actually shade right now. I want to give you a little hint right here. I know that this inequality is dividing the plane in half, all right? But am I going to shade below it or above it? Now, because this 12 is positive right there, all right, when I'm solving for y, my last step would be to divide by 12, which is dividing by a positive number, both sides, so the inequality won't change. So it's going to be less than or equal to. So I'm going to eventually shade underneath this boundary line. But I want to make sure of that by converting this standard form into slope intercept form and take the opportunity to even learn and evaluate some more. So let's go ahead and go 20x plus 12y is less than or equal to 480, and let's convert this to slope intercept or solve for the y. So the first thing you're going to do is subtract the 20x's, and adding or subtracting will never affect your inequality, so it's still less than or equal to. And the 20x minus 20x is gone, leaving the 12y's on the left. So 12 times y is less than or equal to, and these are not like terms, so I cannot combine them. And I'm going to put my x term first to go slope intercept. So I'm going to say negative 20x plus 480. And now I'm going to divide every term by 12. I've got to undo this multiplication by 12 right there. All right, we divided everything by a positive number, so the inequality, like we said up here, it's not going to change. It's still going to be less than or equal to. And on the left, my factors of 12 will cancel, leaving my factor of y. Y is less than or equal to. And a negative over a positive is negative. And now we need to reduce the fraction 20 over 12. Well, what number goes into 20 and 12? 5. Doesn't 5 go into 20 4 times? And doesn't, or excuse me, I said that backwards. 4 is the common number that goes into both of those, and 4 goes into 25 times, and 4 goes into 12 3 times. So my slope is going to be negative 5 over 3. And don't forget your factor of x, and then plus, and we do 480 divided by 12. 480 divided by 12, and that equals, let me try that again, 480 divided by 12, and that equals 40, plus 40. Now, take a look at how we graph the boundary line using the intercepts, and now let's see if the slope intercept makes the same sense here. You guys see the slope of negative 5 over 3 right there? Well, if I just looked at the table I used to do the intercepts, I could find a slope with these 2 points. Because you guys know slope is rise over run, or the change in y. And look at my y's are going from 40 to 0. That would be a negative 40. And I see that in my graph too. This is 40 right here, and I'm dropping down to 0. So I dropped negative 40 right there. And then how far am I running? From 0 to 24 horizontally. So that's 24. And if you look at this graph, we're going from 0 to 24. Right there. Isn't that cool? All right. And now look at this. Negative 40 divided by 24. Isn't that equal to negative 5 over 3? Yeah, this is just reduced. Because what number goes into 40 and 24? That would be an 8. 8 goes into 40 5 times, so that's negative 5. And 8 goes into 24 3 times, over 3. Perfect. Now, the y-intercept is 40. Well, look at the graph. Look at your y-intercept. That's 40. So that all checks too. So we just converted 20x plus 12y is less than or equal to 480, standard form, to slope intercept form. And the reason I really like slope intercept form right here is this. Y is less than or equal to the negative 5/3 x plus 40. Now the equals tells me that this boundary line has to be solid. But the less than tells me I'm going to shade below it. So let's shade everything below that boundary line in the first quadrant. And there's the perfect graph of our original inequality in standard form. 20x plus 12y is less than or equal to 480. Beautiful. All right, looks like we have another constraint now, pampering time. The twins plan to spend 16 minutes each day brushing and petting each cat. So 16 minutes every day for every cat. That'd be 16 times the number of cats y, or 16y. And 20 minutes each day bathing or playing with each dog. So that would be 20 times the number of dogs, 20x. So plus 20x. All right, now how much time do they have? Clarita needs time off in the morning for swim team and evening for her art class, but she can spend up to 8 hours during the middle of the day to pamper and play with the pets. So Clarita has up to, that's less than or equal to, 8 hours. And remember, we have to convert this now to minutes because everything over here is in minutes. So there's 60 minutes in 1 hour, so there would be 60 times 8 would be 480 minutes in 8 hours. And there is our inequality again in standard form. Write inequalities, and notice write inequalities. They'd love us to see us convert this to slope intercept form. For each of these additional time constraints, shade the solution set for each constraint on separate coordinate grids. So here's our second coordinate grid for 20x plus 16y is less than or equal to 480. And our first objective would be boundary line again, and this is in standard form. So standard form implies we probably want to use intercepts. And let's do our little intercept table right here, where x is 0 and y is 0, giving me the y-intercept and the x-intercept. Now, if this x is 0 right here, then the 20 times 0 is gone, and we are left with 16 times what number is 480. So let's just go 480 divided by 16. And we have 30. The y-intercept is 30. Now, if the y is 0, all right, then 16 times 0 is gone, and we have 20 times what number is 480. So 480 divided by 20, and I'm getting a 24 again. 24. So the y-intercept is 30. Oh, and look, that's labeled this time, right there. And the x-intercept is 24, which is also labeled right there. So this will be an absolute perfect graph. So let's get out our ruler and set the ruler between those 2 points and do a perfectly straight line. And does the line need to be solid or dashed? Do you see the equal sign? The boundary line has to be solid. So there it is, our perfect boundary line. Now, I also see that that's positive 16y. So when I solve for y, I am not going to be changing or reversing this inequality. So I know right now I'm going to shade below it. But let's convert the slope intercept just so we can check our y-intercept and our slope and really determine what we have to shade above or below. So here we go. Let's solve for the y. So the first thing you need to do is get rid of the 20x's. Let's subtract 20x from both sides. Will not affect the inequality. Less than or equal to. 20x minus 20x is gone, and we have 16y. And over here, I cannot combine these. They are not like terms, so I'm going to write the x term first, negative 20x plus 480. And now I have to undo this multiplication by 16. So we're going to divide every term by 16. Bring down to less than or equal to. It did not reverse because these are positive numbers. And on the left, my factors of 16 cancel, leaving y is less than or equal to. And a negative over a positive is negative. And now let's reduce the fraction 20 over 16. And what number goes into both 20 and 16? How about 4? Doesn't 4 go into 20 5 times? And doesn't 4 go into 16 4 times? And now don't forget your factor of x. Plus 480 divided by 16. What am I expecting here? I think we should have a 30. Let's punch it out and double check. 480 divided by 16 is 30, plus 30. Now, I love this because I can check everything up here with this. Do you see the slope of negative 5 over 4? Well, let's look at our table. What's our change in y? We go from 30 to 0. That's negative 30. What's our change in x? We go from 0 to 24. That's positive 24. Oh, and look at the graph right here, the negative 30. Do you guys agree? Picture your slope triangle. We dropped 30. And we just said we ran 24. And look at the graph. We went from 0 to 24. Yeah, we ran 24 right there. Nice. And by the way, negative 30 over 24, if I reduce that, I should get negative 5 over 4. So what number goes into 30 and 24 evenly? Doesn't 6 go into 30 5 times? And doesn't 6 go into 24 4 times? It works. Everything checks out. And then finally, the y-intercept should be 30. And look, there it is, and it's already labeled 30. So everything works. Now this is why some people love to convert to slope intercept 2. Now it is obvious. Y is less than or equal to negative 5 over 4x plus 30. So equals, boundary line, solid, and y is less than, remember now, y measures vertically. So y less than would be everything below that boundary line in the first quadrant, which will be right there. And there's the perfect graph of 20x plus 16y is less than or equal to 480. Oh, that was fun. And that was the entire lesson. Oh, wow. Okay. So you guys get a hold of me if you have any questions and get that ready, set, go for 5.4 all done. And you guys have a great day.